This is a tutorial on how you can visualize and analyze your Jira issues in Google Sheets and also in Coda. In Jira, you've probably seen a view like this where you have all your issues and your backlog. And what if you want to view this all in, let's say, a spreadsheet like Google Sheets, so you can organize data, see how all the issues, because this is starting to get a little bit too unwieldy to manage after you click on a given issue. So let's try to visualize this in a spreadsheet. And I created a simple filter that filters on just this project. And now I have a list of all my issues along with the parent issues and subtasks. There are these icons in the top. I'm going to click on Google Sheets, and it's automatically going to create a Google Sheet for me with all my Jira issues. So let's take a look at what it gives us. And here we go. Hopefully it'll load soon. The first page, or first sheet rather, of this Google Sheet is kind of like some basic metadata about your Jira issues, like when it was created and the site, and also like the JQL query you can use to get the issues. But this is the important stuff. This is like the actual data from my Jira project. I'm going to delete these rows because I don't want to play with this image here. Let's delete that. And let's drag this down here so I can get a lock on the first row for our issues. And now you can kind of see a snapshot of our Jira issues in the spreadsheet. And there are 45 issues that are stories, epics, and tasks. So let's try to do something interesting with this data. So let's say I only want to look at my issues that are in the to-do stage. So you could do something like this where you click on status. Actually, I think I have to go to the data menu, data, filter, and then I can filter on just to show to do. And that's nice and that's okay. Like now I have my list of to-do tasks or issues. But what if my teammate comes in here and they want to see the in progress ones? Well, they have to go back into this, click on in progress, and they can then see. Oops, that didn't work. I hit OK. Now they can see all the in progress issues. And let's say they want to see the in progress issues for just themselves. Let's say their name is Evan Davies. They would then have to click here to assignee data. Oops, so let's just filter the whole table, or add a filter for the whole table. So they would have to go to this and then clear all, find their name, Evan Davies, and then also I keep on forgetting to hit OK. Clear all, Evan Davies, hit OK. And these are all their in progress ones. This is already filtered to they only have in progress ones. So you can see how the Google Sheet is doable, but you have to constantly mix and match and see you have to constantly click on the filters depending on who's looking at the Google Sheet in order to see the issues that matter for you. So not that much better compared to just looking at our backlog here, where we can filter by statuses and all that good stuff. Actually, I can just go to the filter and apply that here and apply a filter to see the status and show in progress. So another pretty common option is you can do filtered views. So instead I can go to here, data, create a filter, data, filter views, create a new filter view. And let's say this filter view is going to be called to do issues only. And then I can, let's just apply the filter to column G, data filter. How is this not letting me filter? Let's get rid of that for a second. Let's just go back to our create a filter, to do, hit OK. And I filtered to only to do. Now let's go to data, filter views, creating a filter view, to do only, and update range just in case. Okay, enter. And there we go. So now if I want to, oh, actually I need to turn off the filter for now. So this, when I turn off the filter, I can see all my issues regardless of status. But then if I want to see only the to-do filter, to-do status, I can go to filter views, to-do only, and this will automatically get filtered to only show, oh, that's strange. Let's hit OK. I think this is right. Okay. Let's click out here. Let's try this one more time. To data, filter views, to do only. There we go. So I can only see the, oh, no, it's only showing done. I think I messed this up. But you can see how you can swap between different filter views by going to data and then going to filter views. And then you can pick a filter view. When you're done looking at that filter view, you can close that out. And then you can see your full list of Jira issues again. So a little better, but you have to constantly go into this menu and click on filter views and then go to do only. And you get this little, like, you know, Chrome here to show that you're kind of in this filtered view. So good, but not great. Now let's say you want to see your issues by status for all the statuses, but grouped by the status. So the only way I think you can do this is by creating a pivot table of your issues. Before we create a pivot table, I want you, well, what I'm going to do, you don't have to follow along with me exactly, but you can create, I'm going to create an updated date. You notice how this date, this is when the issue was last updated. It includes a timestamp. I only want to get the date of that timestamp. So I'm going to say equal, I think it's called date time, or date value rather. Here, enter. And then it gives you a number, but I'm going to change this format to be a date. All right. And let's just drag that formula down. So now you can see this date matches with the timestamp, the updated timestamp, but it only has the date. So let's keep that there in the back of your mind. And I'm going to create a pivot table off of all this data. So I select all the data, go to insert, or sorry, data pivot table, new sheet. We're going to call this issues by status. So I can see all my issues, but only by group by status. And let's go now and add some rows. Let's add the, oops, I don't want the assignee. Let's add the key. Let's add the summary, which is the title of the issue. Let's also maybe add the assignee, and let's remove these totals so that they all fit on one row. Now the important one I want to add is status. So let's add status, but let's move this all the way up here, the very top of the order of the pivot table. And now from here, I can kind of see, oh, whoops, I don't want to do that. I can now see the list of issues, but it's grouped by status, by done, in progress, and to do. And if I want to collapse something, I can just click on in progress, to do, and I can now see things that are done. So this is kind of neat, where I can group things by the status, and I can group this by any of these columns so that I can see what my issues are by status. But let's say I want to also see, I want to figure out when my, you notice how, remember how in the last tab we got the updated date? What if I want to see the issues that have been updated most recently with this, for these issues? I could add in another filter. I could add in a filter here where I say the updated date, showing all items. Let's say I only want to show this, this, and that. I only have maybe the most recent dates that have been updated, the issues. And now I see this is only a list of issues that have been updated in the last like 2 months. If I click on add another thing here, show totals, Let's see here. If I go to the right, there you can see I have the updated date here, and these match the filter that I just added. But the problem is if I want to go in here and change this, I have to constantly go here and then click on this filter and change things. It's not the most ideal thing. Another option is you can add in a slicer. So what that is I can go to data slicer and then make this the updated date, apply pivot tables, go OK. And now this is kind of like an interactive drop down. I can put to the right of my pivot table here. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. And when I click on this drop down, I can say I only want to look at the issues for these dates. Hit OK. And this will automatically filter. And then this thing stays put. I don't have to worry about getting into my pivot table options. I can just click on here and filter my list of issues down to the updated date that I care about. So I just showed you a few options as ways you can visualize your Jira issues once they get too out of hand inside Google Sheets. But as you can see, it's not the easiest thing to look at, and also it's not really easy to collaborate on. But the nice thing is you can kind of add custom fields in the spreadsheet, whereas in Jira, it definitely takes a lot more time to add custom fields, especially if those custom fields are calculated based on other fields you have in your Jira instance. The key thing here is that this data is not updated. So if your team is updating the Jira instance and updating issues, I just go back to the project. If they are updating any of these issues in the board or in the backlog or in the roadmap, those issues do not flow through to Google Sheets if you just did what I did, which is export your data into Google Sheets. But Google Sheets does give you this ability to look at your data in a different way. So what if we do this in Coda? So I'm going to create a new Coda document. And instead of just copy and pasting this data into Coda, which would look like this, I'm just going to copy the first kind of few rows here. I could just copy this and put it like here. And you can see I get this list of data, but the problem again, the issue that we face with Google Sheets is that this data is static. It's not updated, but I can play with the data. So the key thing here is we can now, one of the key features in Coda is that we can have something called a Jira Pack table. So there's a natural integration with Jira called a Jira Pack. I'm going to call this my full backlog. And let's add in a Jira Pack table. And it's going to ask me what I want to sync. I want to sync in my issues from my Jira project. I'm just going to do some integration stuff here. I have a project that I think it's called Scrum, Coda Scrum. And I want to, let's see, include all subtasks, okay. And then settings, everything is okay. Maybe I'll just limit to 100 rows for now. And you can set this to manually refresh or automatically refresh daily or hourly. I'm going to set it to manually for now. Hit Start Sync. This is going to think a little bit. And the important aspect about what I'm doing here is that when your team updates anything in Jira on any of the issues on any of these layouts, they will get updated here in this Jira Pack table. So everything gets synced into this Pack table. And let's take a look to see what we get. And here we go. So all of this is live data from Jira. And I'm going to just kind of do some formatting stuff here. Maybe hide, I don't really need the issue URL right now. Get rid of let's hide this project column. I can hide this reporter column. And I can also add in a bunch of other columns here that are related to a Jira issue. So if I hover over this issue column, let me move my thing out of the way here. You can see here, if I hover over this, you'll see all these additional columns of data for that specific issue I can add. So let's say I want to add a column for, let's see, not priority. Issue type is something interesting I want to add. I want to also maybe add the... Actually, we can start with that. Actually, I do want to add in story points. I think story points are also interesting to look at and calculate. Let me try to find the story point. I know it's somewhere down here. Here we go, story point estimate. And that's pretty good for now. Maybe we can also add some other columns. Another way you can add columns is from your Jira data is by going to here, issue. Let's move my camera here now. Jira issue. Maybe I want the ID. Let's see, what else do I want? Maybe I can also add in the sprint. Sprint seems kind of interesting. Maybe I also can add in, I don't think I have the key yet for my Jira issues. Let me have that. So these are all important information that I might want to, I'm not sure why this is called ID2. This is all important information that I might want to look at in my Jira instance. I think I might also want to add the parent, because sometimes I want to know if a given task has a parent task, so I can group things a certain way. So this is my table. It's synced over from Jira, and I can do some really interesting visualizations with this main issues table. So for instance, let's say I want to look at my backlog by status, which is something we tried to do in Google Sheets here in this kind of pivot table view. I can just select all my dates here to see everything again. So this is like how you would see things grouped by status in Google Sheets. In Coda, I'm just going to give this a nice little icon. I'm going to insert a view of my data. And this is my entire list of issues, but I want to filter this down to only show issues by status. I'm going to hide this view title for now. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to insert a select list that allows me to pick the status, kind of like more interactive, select status. And I'm going to insert a select list. Let's call this select status. And this is going to be, I believe it's in to do, in progress, and then done. Notice how I have the status column here. I'm just going to filter this list based on whatever is selected in this dropdown. So I only want to look at the to-do stuff, to-do issues. I can filter this, add a filter. Status uses interactive filter, contains select status. And now, let me just hide a few things here that I don't want to look at. I want issue. I don't care about priority. I don't care about... Actually, let's keep status in for now, just to prove a point. Let's hide some of this other stuff. Actually, I still want to keep in the assignee. I think the assignee is pretty important to look at. And let's move the key over to our left here. And I think this is pretty good. So you'll see here is when I click on this dropdown, it will only show me, this view will only filter down to the list of issues that are matching this status, which is in progress right now. If I choose this to done, this will only show the done tasks. And what's really neat is I can also add in other columns that I want to maybe group by, because I already have my status picked out. Let's say I want to look at this by sprint. I can move this sprint column over here. Group this by sprint along the left. And this is a really neat way of looking at my data now, because I can look at all my sprints and then see which issues within a given sprint are to do. This sprint is 2019 Q3 JTS sprint. We can actually move this. These are issues that don't have an associated sprint in Jira. Now the main thing here is if I change QA testing as a task in Jira, and I change this from, if I change this from to do, notice how this is to do. It's also to do here. If I change this from to do to in progress in Jira, This will take a few seconds here to update in Coda. But what happens is I can now sync my data again. I'm doing this manually sync for now, but you can set this to be every day or every hour. I'm just going to click on this sync here. And it's going to now take the data from Jira and update it in my Coda table. Loading issues, and hopefully it picks up that change for QA testing, which is change from to do to in progress. Let's give it some time to think. And let's take a look. Oh, it still says to do. So this might take some time. Maybe I'll try refreshing the page, and I don't think refreshing the page will matter, but let's just try anyways. I always like refreshing the page to see if it does anything. Well, we can also sync this one more time. I know this, when I first did this, it took maybe like 20 seconds or so before it picked up the change. But the real powerful thing is now I can take this data and add additional columns, additional custom fields to this table without having to worry, and it won't get synced back to Jira, of course, but I can do my own visualizations and analyze data separately. Still says to do. Let's make sure I set this to in progress. Yep, it's definitely in progress. It's always a live demo where you never know if it's going to work. Let's try refreshing again. I'm going to just try building another page that shows backlog by last updated. Kind of similar to what we did here in Google Sheets, where we had this last updated column, but we just pulled out the date, and then we kind of used it here in this pivot table. Let's take a look to see if this is still loading. I can open my issues table, and I know that this is when this was last updated, but let's say I want to create a custom column that's a calculated column, and it only looks at, I want to see if this issue was updated in the last 7 days, the last 90 days, or more than 90 days. So I'm looking at this updated column here. And, oh, that's strange. It still says QA testing. Let's try a different thing. Let's try editing the title. I know this worked when I first experimented with it. QA testing for tutorial. And let's see if this CS38, this issue ID carries over into my Coda. Oh, well, I'm looking at the wrong issue. Well, that's embarrassing. So let's go to in progress. So here we go. So this is what I was actually editing. No wonder why it wasn't loading up. But notice how I just updated this QA testing CS38 to for tutorial. If I refresh this QA testing should change to QA testing for tutorial because I updated it in my Jira. So this is really the key point here I'm trying to get across, is that the data syncs over from Jira into your Coda table. I'm just going to do some more work here. So I want to say planned, let's call this update category. Sometimes you want to create your own custom fields based on your Jira issues. And here we go. The QA testing for tutorial has now synced over. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a switch if statement, switch if. And I'm going to say if updated, which is this column right here, if it's greater than or equal to today's date, -7, so in the last 7 days, it's going to give me an output of last 7 days. If the updated date was greater than or equal to today -90, then update last 90 days. And then I can say true here because if I want everything else to just evaluate to more than 90 days. And now if I scroll down my table here, I can see here these are all the last 7 days. This was more than 90 days. Actually, let me just sort this column by descending order. And let's take a look at my whole table here. Let's hide this column for now. Let's collapse this a little bit. These are the most recently updated issues in my Jira list of issues. These are updated in the last 7 days. This was updated in the last 90 days. And these are more than 90 days old, as you can see here. And if I can now group this by, let's say, along the top. And maybe I also want to maybe add like a conditional formatting to this. I can say conditional formatting. Let's say add a rule where the update category, that's what we did, contains the last 7 days. Then I want this to be a green, so it's like kind of a good thing. Let's apply this to all columns. Let's duplicate this two times because I have 3 different update categories. Last 90 days. These are kind of like the yellow ones. Let's go to yellow. I think I might have not spelled, oh, I made this lowercase d. There we go. And then this is more than 90 days. More than 90 days. I think that's spelled that correctly. These are all red. And now I've color-coded my issues by when they were last updated. And if I change the layout of this to be kind of like a Trello card view, I've now basically created my own custom view of my Jira issues that are synced over from Jira based on the updated date on when the issues were updated. And I can see them kind of listed out like this. So I can kind of get a visual indicator of like what issues are updated in the last 7 days versus 90 versus more than 90 days. I can move this over here because I want this to be the last column, like that. So just to recap, I walked through how you can export your Jira issues into Google Sheets, and we try to play around with kind of looking at your issues in Google Sheets across different dimensions. But then in Coda, we're able to create multiple views of all of our issues by simply using a main table of issues that comes from Jira, and then we filter this list and analyze differently by looking at it by using select lists, by hiding columns and grouping by different columns, and then also creating our own custom columns, which was this last update category.